The old radio crackled in Tom Miller's garage workshop, spitting out strange sounds that made him pause while working on his neighbor's truck. At first, he thought it was just the usual static, but there was something different about it this time. The signal had a pattern he had never heard before. 3 short bursts, followed by a long tone, then repeating. Tom wiped his greasy hands on an old rag and walked over to the radio set. It was a hobby of his, collecting and fixing old communication equipment. Living alone in rural Montana gave him plenty of time for such interests. The 30-year-old mechanic adjusted the dials, trying to make the signal clearer. "That's definitely not regular radio chatter," he muttered to himself, his blue eyes narrowing as he concentrated on the sound. The signal grew stronger as night fell, becoming more distinct with each passing hour. Tom couldn't shake the feeling that this was important somehow. He grabbed his coffee mug and settled in for a long night of trying to decode the strange transmission. The clock on his workshop wall ticked past midnight, then 1, then 2. His eyes grew heavy, but the mysterious signal kept him awake. He had connected his old laptop to the radio, running various programs to analyze the sound pattern. Just as he was about to give up and head to bed, a bright light flooded his workshop through the windows. It wasn't like any car headlights he'd ever seen. It was pure white, almost blinding. Tom rushed to the window, coffee mug dropping from his hand and shattering on the concrete floor. The light was coming from his backyard, illuminating the old oak tree and his collection of project cars like it was broad daylight. His heart raced as he watched a shape emerge from the center of the light. Years of watching science fiction movies had prepared him for little green men or the typical gray aliens, but what he saw made his jaw drop. An 8-foot-tall woman stepped out of the light. She was humanoid, but her height wasn't her only striking feature. Her skin had a slight silvery sheen, and her movements were graceful despite her size. She wore what looked like a fitted spacesuit, dark blue with strange symbols glowing along its seams. Tom stood frozen, unsure whether to run, hide, or pinch himself to check if he was dreaming. The giantess turned her head, scanning the area until her eyes met his through the workshop window. To his surprise, she smiled and raised her hand in a universal gesture of peaceful greeting. His legs moved on their own, carrying him to the workshop's back door. Some part of his mind screamed that this was crazy, that he should call someone. The police, the army, anyone. But curiosity won out over caution. He opened the door and stepped into his backyard. "Hello," the tall woman said in perfect English, her voice surprisingly gentle for someone her size. "I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but I picked up your radio signal and determined this would be a suitable landing location." Tom blinked several times, his mind struggling to process what was happening. Behind the woman, he could now see what appeared to be a spacecraft, about the size of a small bus, hovering slightly above the ground. It had a sleek design that made his best repair work look like child's toys. "I'm Kay," she continued, taking a careful step forward. She moved slowly, obviously trying not to frighten him. "My ship's tracking system indicated this area had active radio equipment and a single occupant. I hope I didn't startle you too badly." Tom finally found his voice. "I'm Tom," he managed to say. "Tom Miller. And yeah, you could say I'm a bit startled." He let out a nervous laugh. "That's my radio you picked up. I was actually trying to figure out your signal." Kay's face brightened. "Excellent. That means you have some understanding of communication technology. That might be very helpful because—" She paused, looking somewhat embarrassed despite her imposing height. "Well, I find myself in need of assistance. My ship suffered damage during an unfortunate encounter, and your planet was the nearest location marked for potential mechanical aptitude in our database." Tom looked at the alien woman, then at her ship, then back at her. His mind was spinning with questions, but years of dealing with customers who came to his garage with car troubles kicked in. What kind of damage are we talking about? He heard himself ask, as if this was just another repair job. The smile that spread across Kay's face made her whole being light up. "Oh, wonderful. You're already thinking like a mechanic. Perhaps the database entry about human adaptability wasn't exaggerated after all. Inside Tom's workshop, Kay had to bend down to avoid hitting her head on the ceiling. She looked almost comical sitting on 3 stacked milk crates, which Tom had hurriedly arranged as a makeshift seat. His old wooden chair creaked as he sat across from her, still trying to process that he was having a conversation with an 8-foot-tall alien in his garage. "The Stellar Commonwealth," Kay explained, her long fingers gesturing as she spoke, "spans across hundreds of star systems. We're explorers and traders, mainly. My ship was on a routine survey mission when we encountered trouble." She frowned slightly, and Tom noticed how her silvery skin seemed to dim with her mood. "What kind of trouble?" Tom asked, pouring coffee into his spare mug. He offered it to Kay, who accepted it with surprising delight. The mug looked like a tiny teacup in her large hands. "Space pirates," she said, taking a careful sip. Her eyes widened at the taste, but she continued. "Not all species in the galaxy are as peaceful as the Commonwealth. These pirates have been causing problems in this sector for months. They attacked my ship, hoping to steal our survey data and technology." Tom leaned forward, intrigued. "But you got away?" Kay nodded, a proud smile crossing her face. "I managed to damage their tracking systems and escape through an emergency quantum jump, but the jump strained my ship's drive beyond its limits. When I needed a place to land and make repairs, my database showed Earth as the nearest planet with," she paused, searching for the right words, "let's say, mechanically inclined inhabitants." "Wait," Tom said, holding up his hand. "Your database had information about Earth, about humans." "Of course. Earth has been under observation for quite some time. Your species is particularly interesting to us. You're one of the few races we've encountered who developed mechanical technology before achieving quantum understanding. Most species do it the other way around." Tom wasn't sure whether to feel proud or concerned about being under observation. He took a long drink of his coffee, gathering his thoughts. "And everyone in the Commonwealth is, your size." Kay laughed, a musical sound that echoed in the workshop. "My people, the Altarians, are generally tall by galactic standards. But the Commonwealth includes species of all sizes. Some are even smaller than humans." She set down her tiny mug carefully. "Actually, your size has many advantages. You can work with smaller, more precise tools. That's part of why your mechanical achievements are so impressive." "Speaking of mechanical achievements," Tom said, glancing through the window at the sleek spacecraft hovering in his backyard, "what exactly is wrong with your ship?" Kay's expression turned serious. "The quantum drive suffered severe damage during the emergency jump. Without it, I can't return home, or even send a distress signal to the Commonwealth. The pirates damaged my communication array as well." She looked at Tom hopefully. "The basic principles of the drive aren't too different from your combustion engines, just operating on a quantum level. With your mechanical expertise and my knowledge of the technology, we might be able to repair it." Tom ran his fingers through his hair, a habit when he was thinking hard. "I'm just a small-town mechanic, Kay. I fix trucks and tractors, not spaceships." "But that's exactly why I chose to land here," Kay said eagerly, leaning forward. The milk crates creaked under her weight. "Your kind of practical, hands-on experience is rare in the Commonwealth. Most of our engineers are pure theorists. They understand the quantum equations but have never actually fixed anything mechanical." "And if we can't fix it?" Tom asked. Kay's face grew solemn. "Then I'm stranded here. And worse, if the pirates manage to track my jump trajectory even partially." She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. Tom understood the implications. He stood up and walked to his toolbox, an old red metal chest passed down from his father. Opening it, he looked at the familiar wrenches, screwdrivers, and socket sets. They seemed almost primitive now, knowing what he did about quantum drives and space pirates. But they were his tools, and he knew how to use them. "Well," he said, turning back to Kay with determination in his voice, "let's at least take a look at this quantum drive of yours. Maybe between your advanced knowledge and my primitive wrench-turning, we can figure something out. The smile that lit up Kay's face was bright enough to rival the workshop lights. That's exactly the kind of practical thinking that made us include Earth in our database. The morning sun cast long shadows across Tom's backyard as he stood beside Kay, looking up at her spacecraft. In the daylight, he could better appreciate its sleek design. The ship was about 30 feet long, with smooth curves that reminded him of a dolphin. Its surface had a pearl-like shine that seemed to change color depending on how the light hit it. "The quantum drive is located here," Kay said, touching a panel near the rear of the ship. The panel slid open silently, revealing a complex array of machinery that made Tom's eyes widen. At first glance, it looked impossibly advanced, but as he looked closer, he began to notice familiar patterns. "That looks like a cooling system," he said, pointing to a series of tubes running through the machinery. "And those must be power distribution nodes, kind of like a car's electrical system, but way more complex." Kay's expression brightened. "Exactly. The basic principles of energy distribution and heat management remain constant, regardless of the technology level. That's what makes your mechanical expertise so valuable." Tom grabbed his toolbox and a rolling mechanics creeper from his workshop. Kay watched with interest as he lay down on it and rolled under the ship. The quantum drive hummed softly above him, giving off a faint blue glow. "This is fascinating," he muttered, examining the components. "It's like looking at the great-great-grandchild of a regular engine. I can see the family resemblance. But everything's evolved." He pointed to a damaged section. "What's this part do?" Kay had to lie flat on her stomach to see where he was pointing, her 8-foot frame stretched out beside him. The sight of the giant woman lying next to him on the ground would have seemed absurd just a day ago, but Tom was already getting used to her presence. "That's the quantum field generator," she explained. "It creates a bubble of altered space-time around the ship, allowing for faster-than-light travel." The pirates' weapons disrupted the field alignment, causing cascade failures throughout the system. Tom rolled out from under the ship and sat up, wiping his hands on his work pants. "The damage isn't as bad as I expected. The basic structure is intact, but those crystal-looking things in the generator are cracked." "The quantum crystals." Kay sat up as well, looking worried. "Those are extremely rare and precisely calibrated. Without them, the drive can't function." Tom walked over to his workbench and returned with a small device he used for checking electronic systems in cars. "Let me try something," he said, connecting it to one of the undamaged crystals. The device's screen lit up with readings. "Interesting," he murmured. "These crystals were kind of like the piezoelectric crystals we use in some engine sensors, just way more advanced. They convert energy into mechanical movement, but at a quantum level." He looked at Kay. "Could we maybe recalibrate the remaining good crystals to work together? Like running an engine on fewer cylinders?" Kay's eyes widened. That might actually work. We'd need to recalculate the quantum field equations. But she jumped up excitedly, forgetting about the low garage ceiling, and bumping her head. "Ouch, but yes, if we can modify the field generator to work with fewer crystals, we might be able to create a stable enough field for at least short-distance travel." They spent the next few hours working together, Kay having to constantly duck under doorways and handle tools that seemed tiny in her large hands. Tom found himself impressed by how quickly she grasped mechanical concepts, while she marveled at his ability to improvise solutions with limited resources. "In the Commonwealth," she said, watching him modify a sensor array with parts from an old truck's computer, "we would spend months running simulations before attempting anything like this. Your willingness to try practical solutions, even if they might fail, is remarkable." Tom grinned as he carefully soldered a connection. "That's how we learn best, by doing. Sometimes you just have to get your hands dirty and figure things out as you go." He held up the modified sensor. "Ready to try this?" The quantum drive hummed to life as they connected the new parts. The blue glow intensified, and readings on Kay's handheld device showed promising results. They looked at each other with growing excitement, both feeling that they might actually pull this off. Tom's old radio equipment picked up the strange signals just after midnight. He and Kay had been working on the quantum drive for 3 days straight, and the odd beeping pattern made them both freeze. It was different from Kay's original distress signal, more aggressive somehow. "That's not good," Kay said, her silvery skin paling slightly. She rushed to check her ship's sensors, having to crouch down to fit through the garage door. "The pirates are getting closer. They're scanning this sector of space." Tom felt his stomach tighten. "I thought you said they couldn't track you through a quantum jump." "They shouldn't be able to, unless..." Kay's expression darkened. "They must have better tracking technology than we thought. We need to work faster." Their quiet routine of repair work suddenly turned into a race against time. But keeping an 8-foot-tall alien woman hidden was becoming harder by the day. Just that morning, Bill from the hardware store had given Tom an odd look when he bought an unusual amount of electronic components and copper wire. "You sure got a lot of projects going on lately, Tom," Bill had said, eyeing the pile of supplies. "Yeah, just catching up on some old repair jobs," Tom had mumbled, trying to sound casual while paying for parts that would help fix an alien spacecraft. Now, as they worked through another night, lights appeared in the sky. They weren't the usual aircraft lights. These moved in strange patterns, searching. Tom watched them through his workshop window, his wrench gripped tightly in his hand. "They're scanning for Commonwealth technology signatures," Kay explained, looking up from her work on the drive. "My ship's cloaking system is working, but I don't know how long it will hold." A truck drove past Tom's property, slowing down as it passed. It was Dave, his nearest neighbor from 2 miles down the road. The truck stopped, and Dave's familiar figure stepped out, looking up at the strange lights in the sky. Tom quickly hit the workshop light switch, plunging the garage into darkness. Kay moved silently to a corner, her tall frame barely visible in the shadows. They heard Dave's footsteps approaching the workshop. "Tom, you in there?" Dave's voice called out. "You seeing these weird lights? Mary swears she saw something big moving around your property last night." Tom opened the workshop door just enough to stick his head out. "Hey, Dave. Yeah, I've seen them. Probably just military aircraft doing exercises. You know how they are." Dave didn't look convinced. "Military, huh? And what about the thing Mary saw?" "Probably just shadows from my work lights. Been pulling some late nights fixing up old Johnson's tractor." Tom tried to sound casual, but he could feel sweat forming on his forehead. After what felt like hours, Dave finally shrugged and headed back to his truck. As soon as he drove away, Tom let out a long breath and turned the lights back on. Kay emerged from her corner, having to unfold herself from her cramped hiding position. "Your neighbors are observant," she said, rubbing her neck, "and I don't like those scanning patterns. The pirates are being methodical. They're searching grid by grid." Tom walked over to the quantum drive they'd been repairing. "How much longer until we can get this working?" "With the modifications we've made, maybe 2 more days." But Kay hesitated, looking at the screens showing the scanning patterns. "We might not have that long." Tom grabbed his tool belt and rolled up his sleeves. "Then we'll have to work faster. I got some ideas about boosting the power output using parts from my old truck's turbocharger." They worked through the night, the sound of tools mixing with the hum of alien technology. Every now and then, they would pause as more vehicles drove past the property, drawn by the strange lights in the sky. Local news would probably start reporting UFO sightings soon. As dawn approached, Kay's sensors picked up more signals. The pirate ships were getting closer, their search pattern tightening around the area. Tom could see the worry in Kay's eyes, but there was determination there too. They both knew they were running out of time, but giving up wasn't an option. "We'll figure this out," Tom said, patting the quantum drive with a grease-stained hand. "Humans are pretty good at working under pressure." Kay managed a smile, though her eyes kept darting to the sensors. I'm starting to understand why your species has such a reputation for beating impossible odds. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows through the workshop as Tom and Kay took a brief break from their repairs. They sat outside behind the garage, hidden from the road, sharing a meal of sandwiches. Tom couldn't help but smile at how tiny the sandwich looked in Kay's large hands. "Your food is fascinating," Kay said, carefully taking another bite. "In the Commonwealth, most species consume nutrient pastes designed for optimal efficiency. But this," she held up the sandwich, "this has character." Tom laughed. "Wait until you try pizza. Though I guess we'll have to save that for your next visit, assuming we get your ship fixed in time." Kay's expression turned thoughtful as she looked up at the evening sky. "You know, humans have quite a reputation in the galactic community. Most species are specialized. They're either good at abstract thinking or practical skills, but rarely both. Humans seem to bridge that gap naturally." "Really?" Tom wiped his hands on a shop rag. "I always figured we'd be seen as pretty primitive compared to species that can travel between stars." "Not at all." Kay's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "Take how you approached the quantum drive repairs. Most Commonwealth engineers would have given up without access to a proper quantum laboratory. But you looked at it like any other engine and found ways to adapt your existing tools." Tom shrugged. "That's just how we do things here. Use what you have. Figure out what works." "Exactly." Kay had to duck under a low-hanging branch as she gestured excitedly. "That adaptability is rare. In my culture, we spend years studying the theory before even touching real equipment. But humans, you learn by doing, by making mistakes and fixing them." They watched as a satellite crossed the darkening sky. Tom wondered if it might be one of the pirate ships in orbit, searching for them. "Tell me about your world," he said, trying to keep his mind off the danger. "What's it like where you come from?" Kay's face softened with memories. "My home planet, Alta, has 3 suns. The sky is never truly dark. It shifts through different colors as the suns rise and set. Our cities are built vertically to accommodate our height, with gardens spiraling up the buildings." She paused, looking at Tom's simple but well-maintained workshop. "But we've lost something in all our advancement. The personal touch, the pride in working with your hands." "Is that why you became an explorer?" Tom asked. "To find something different." "Partly," Kay nodded. "I always felt there was more to learn from other cultures than from our advanced databases. The Commonwealth is peaceful and prosperous. But sometimes I think we're too comfortable, too set in our ways." Tom stood up and walked to his toolbox, pulling out an old wrench. "My father gave me this when I first started learning mechanics. Said there's no computer that can replace the feel of the right tool in your hand and the knowledge of how to use it." Kay carefully took the wrench, her large fingers wrapping around it. "Your father was wise. In the Commonwealth, we have automated repair systems that can fix most problems. But when those systems fail, like they did on my ship, many of our people wouldn't know where to begin." "Maybe that's what our species could offer the galaxy," Tom said. "Not advanced technology, but a different way of thinking about problems." "You already are," Kay smiled. "There's a reason Earth is marked in our databases. Your solutions might seem simple to you, but they're remarkably effective. It's why I chose to land here when my ship was damaged." The moment was interrupted by a beeping from Kay's handheld scanner. Her expression turned serious as she checked the readings. "The pirate ships are moving into a lower orbit," she said. "They're narrowing their search area." Tom looked at his father's old wrench in Kay's hand, then at the partially repaired quantum drive in his garage. "Well, then we better get back to work. Maybe it's time to show the galaxy what happens when human ingenuity meets Commonwealth technology." Kay stood up, carefully returning the wrench. "You know, Tom, I think this accident might turn out to be one of the most important first contact scenarios in Commonwealth history. Let's survive it first," Tom said with a grin, heading back to the workshop. "Then we can worry about making history." The warning signal came just before dawn. Kay's sensors lit up like a Christmas tree, showing 3 pirate ships entering the atmosphere. Tom rushed out of his workshop, where he'd been dozing on his old couch, to find Kay already at her ship's controls. "They found us," she said, her silver skin taking on a pale, worried tone. 3 combat vessels, heavily armed. They'll be here in less than 10 minutes. Tom looked at the half-repaired quantum drive, then at his collection of modified truck parts and tools scattered around the workshop. An idea started forming in his mind. "How good is your ship's cloaking system?" he asked, grabbing his toolbox. "It's still working, but they're using advanced scanners. They'll find us soon enough." Kay had to duck to avoid hitting her head on the garage door frame as she followed him. "What if we gave them something else to scan?" Tom rushed to his line of old trucks parked behind the workshop. "Help me hook up those quantum crystals we modified to my truck's engines." Kay's eyes widened as she understood his plan. The energy signature would be similar to Commonwealth technology, but scattered across multiple locations. She quickly began helping him, her large hands carefully handling the delicate crystals. They worked frantically, connecting the modified crystals to the engines of 3 old trucks. Tom had rigged them with remote starters he normally used for testing engines. The morning sun was just peeking over the horizon when they finished. "They're starting their scan," Kay warned, checking her handheld device. Above them, the sky had taken on a strange, shimmering quality as the pirate ships moved into position. Tom grabbed the remote controls. "Get to your ship. When I give the signal, fire up the quantum drive at full power." Kay looked at him with concern. "But it's not fully repaired. The power surge could." "Trust me," Tom said with a grin. "Sometimes you need to make a little noise to stay hidden." The air crackled with energy as the pirate ship's scanning beams swept the area. Tom waited until they were directly overhead, then hit all 3 remote starters at once. The truck's engines roared to life, the quantum crystals creating energy signatures that lit up Kay's sensors like flares. The pirate ships immediately changed course, their scanning beams focusing on the trucks. Tom waited until they were completely distracted, then yelled, "Now, Kay." Kay fired up her ship's quantum drive. The surge of power was massive, but instead of trying to contain it, Tom had modified the system to channel the excess energy outward. The electromagnetic pulse hit the pirate ships just as they were concentrating their scans on the trucks. The result was spectacular. The pirates' sensitive scanning equipment overloaded, sending cascading failures through their ship systems. Their engines sputtered and failed, forcing them to use emergency thrusters to retreat back to orbit. "It worked," Kay shouted, her voice filled with amazement. "Their primary systems are completely scrambled. They're running." Tom watched as the pirate ships disappeared into the early morning sky, leaving only contrails behind. Good thing pirates never expect their prey to fight back. Kay emerged from her ship, ducking under the garage door one last time. That was brilliant, using their own scanning energy against them, amplified by the quantum drive's power surge. She looked at the smoking trucks, their engines probably ruined by the experiment. "Though I'm sorry about your vehicles." Tom shrugged. Those old trucks were headed for the scrapyard anyway. Better they go out helping to fight off space pirates. The sound of approaching vehicles made them both tense, but it was just early morning traffic on the distant highway. The whole confrontation had lasted less than 15 minutes. "We should finish the repairs quickly," Kay said, looking at the quantum drive. "The pirates will be back once they repair their systems, probably with reinforcements." Tom nodded, already gathering his tools. "At least now we know our jury-rigged repairs can handle a full power surge. Sometimes you need a crisis to prove your work." Kay smiled, her tall frame casting a long shadow in the morning sun. "You humans really do have a unique way of solving problems. The Commonwealth's tactical experts would never have thought to use such a simple but effective strategy." "Sometimes the best solution is the simplest one," Tom said, heading back to work. "Now let's get your ship fixed properly before those pirates come back for round 2. The quantum drive hummed with a smooth, steady tone that made Tom smile with pride. After another day of intense work, they had finally restored it to full functionality. Kay stood beside him, having to bend slightly under the workshop ceiling, her silver skin glowing with excitement as she checked the readings. "The field stability is actually better than factory specifications," she said, wonder in her voice. "Your modifications to the power distribution system are more efficient than our original design. How did you think of using the truck's turbocharger principles to enhance the quantum flow?" Tom wiped his hands on his old work rag, looking at the hybrid of Commonwealth and Earth technology they had created. "Sometimes fresh eyes see things differently. We might not have your advanced technology, but we've got generations of experience making the most of what we have." The morning sun was just starting to peek over the horizon. In a few hours, Kay would need to leave before the pirates could return with reinforcements. They both felt the weight of the moment as they began their final preparations. Kay walked to her ship, each step slow and deliberate. She touched a panel on the side, and a small compartment opened. From it, she removed what looked like a simple metal disc about the size of a coffee cup. "This is a Commonwealth emergency beacon," she said, walking back to Tom. The disc looked tiny in her large hands. "I'm officially registering you as Earth's first emergency contact point. If any Commonwealth ships in this sector need assistance, they'll know to seek you out." Tom took the beacon carefully. "Are you sure about this? I'm just a small-town mechanic." Kay smiled. A small-town mechanic who helped defeat space pirates and repaired a quantum drive with spare truck parts. "The Commonwealth needs more people who can think like you do." She pressed a few buttons on her handheld device. "I'm also marking Earth as a protected world in our database. Those pirates won't dare come back once they see that designation." "Won't you get in trouble?" Tom asked, "for sharing technology with a developing world?" "Actually," Kay's eyes twinkled with amusement, "I'm following proper first contact protocols, just in reverse order. Usually, we make contact first, then share technology. We did it the other way around, but the end result is the same. Besides, after examining your work on the quantum drive, I can officially classify Earth as having emerging quantum engineering capabilities." Tom laughed. "That's stretching the truth a bit." "Not at all. You understood and improved upon Commonwealth technology. That's more than enough qualification." She looked at her ship, then back at Tom. "I'll need to return with a proper first contact team. There will be diplomats, scientists, cultural experts, 8-foot-tall beings in suits." Tom grinned. "Some of them, yes, along with species of all sizes. The Commonwealth is quite diverse." Kay's expression turned serious. "But before all that, I have a request. Would you be willing to serve as Earth's initial liaison? We'll need someone who understands both our technology and human ways." Tom looked around his workshop, at the tools and parts that had helped save both their lives. "Do I need to wear a suit?" Kay laughed, the sound echoing off the garage walls. "Just be exactly who you are. That's what the Commonwealth needs. Someone real, practical, and not afraid to try new things." The sun had fully risen now, and Kay's sensors showed it was time to leave. They walked to her ship together. An odd pair, the 8-foot-tall, silver-skinned alien, and the grease-stained mechanic from Montana. "How long until you return?" Tom asked, as Kay's ship powered up. "A few months at most. Try not to solve all of humanity's problems before I get back." She smiled, then added more seriously, "And thank you, Tom. Not just for fixing my ship, but for showing me that there's still much the Commonwealth can learn." Tom stepped back as the ship's engines began to glow. "Just don't forget to bring pizza next time. I want to see your reaction to that." The last thing he saw before the ship took off was Kay's bright smile and a wave of her large hand. The ship rose silently into the morning sky, its quantum drive now running better than new, and disappeared with a flash of light. Tom looked down at the Commonwealth beacon in his hand, then at his workshop with its odd mix of truck parts and alien technology. Somehow, he knew his life as a simple mechanic had just become a lot more interesting. Well, he said to himself, pocketing the beacon and picking up his favorite wrench, I guess I better clean up the shop. Something tells me I'm going to have some interesting customers soon.